do in the context of fairness as between governments and their respective sources of revenue.
A couple more questions.
So you had a lot of these photo ops recently, obviously trying to make a point. How much longer do you expect to continue these TCHC tours and please the province?
For as long as it takes. This is about people's lives. You know, it comes down to sounding like it's about money. It's about people's lives. It's about people who are living in these substandard conditions, who are sometimes people who can't really speak for themselves very effectively in terms of having a voice that's heard. And it's about an issue of fairness as between Toronto and the provincial and federal governments in terms of who should help to foot the bill for these much-needed repairs that total into the billions of dollars. And so I will continue to talk about this. I won't talk about it to the exclusion of other things because there's many issues that have to be addressed, but this is a very, very important issue. And I think the fairness involved here as between governments, it was fine for the government to do something that I thought was patently unfair and quite frankly politically motivated, which was to cancel an initiative we had undertaken in good faith. I try to be a good partner and step up and say, I will, put in road tolls and take the heat for it with the public to finance some of these kinds of things that we have to undertake together. And then I'm told I can't do that. And I thought that was very unfair. And I think it's also unfair that the city government should be left holding the bag for the entirety of these repairs, including a lot of this housing that was downloaded from the very same government to Toronto years ago in a state of questionable repair at the time. And so I'll continue to talk. Stuff like that has to do with fairness, I'll continue to talk about it indefinitely as long as there's an unfairness.
You campaigned on a promise to work well with the other levels of government and to, I guess, turn the good relationship that you have at Queen's Park into benefits for the City of Toronto. But I wanted to know from you, I mean, I saw your new placard for your podium, says you're standing up for Toronto. I just want to know, like, at what point do you think you're standing up for Toronto maybe too much to the detriment of how you can work together with those people at Queen's Park?
I don't believe there's such a concept as standing up for Toronto too much. I believe there's a way of going about it that could, be something that could be subject to criticism. But I believe I've been fact-based. I believe I've been polite. I've been persistent. But you haven't heard me. And in fact, I think it was somebody else at Queen's Park that accused me of not telling the truth on the facts related to this. You've never heard me say that. I've just said what is true. There was no new money in the 2017 provincial budget for the repair of social housing. Period, full stop. That is a fact. Check the budget. Point to the page where there's any new money for housing. So I will do that. I am a consensus builder. I want to get along with everybody in terms of the other governments, especially because we can do great things together. I'll give you an example. I had a conversation last week at the announcement of a great design expo that we're going to have in Toronto this fall with the Minister of Culture about the library funding. And I told her, please go and check the facts on the usage of this thing that your people have told you has been reduced in usage. She went and checked, and within hours that funding was restored. And I said it to her in a very cooperative way. We had a good chat about it. I'm going to have chats in the next 2 days with other ministers in that government about other issues. So we continue to do business. But on this, I can't, sort of not talk about it. I can't not raise it because I believe so fundamentally this is a question of fairness to the people involved who live in these buildings first and foremost, but it's also a question of fairness to Toronto, which alone bears the responsibility for 58,000 housing units, that many of which were downloaded to us by that very same government, and many of which are in a state of very poor repair now as they were then.
Mr. Mayor, on pride,
yes.
I'm reading too much in your statement, but it seems to suggest that you're pleased that talks are continuing between the organizers and police, and therefore you're supporting funding the parade, but that say those talks would break down or the pride organizers would decide, no, we want to maintain and not have the police included, would you then be open to actually defunding this parade, or what are you saying?
Pride is all about inclusion, and excluding anybody, including the police, to me is not an acceptable state of affairs on a go-forward basis. So I think they should find a way to include the police in Pride. And the most important thing to me at this juncture is that the two groups, the police and Pride, are talking to each other. They both tell me those discussions are constructive, and they've both said to me, perhaps most important of all at this juncture, that a withdrawal of city funding would not be helpful to the resolution of this issue. And so I'm saying a resolution of this issue means that we have a parade that includes everybody, and I'm willing to let them continue to have those discussions and see how they make out, because they both tell me they're constructive and I want them to achieve the right outcome.
So you're open to withdrawing funding funding, say, next year?
I'm not going to engage in hypothetical speculation about what would happen in future years. I'm just saying for this year. For this year, both of the parties involved in these constructive discussions, the Chief of Police, who I talked to this morning, and the head of Pride, who I also talked to this morning, have told me that to withdraw funding at this stage would not be helpful in their ongoing attempts to achieve a resolution to this issue, which in my view would be that we would see the police back in the Pride Parade, which is by itself a celebration of inclusion.
So what do you think about this morning's tweet when they said they can come, but no uniforms, no weapons, no cars?
I think what we saw this morning is part of the ongoing dialogue that goes on on social media. I think, again, that I'm encouraged that there are discussions happening behind closed doors, as they should be for now, aimed at reaching a resolution to this, that both sides tell me those discussions are constructive in their nature. They both said they're going to continue with them, and they have both said it is not helpful for the city to withdraw its funding at this time if you want them to reach a resolution which sees the Pride Parade become fully inclusive again, including the police.
I'm sorry, Mayor, just thinking we've had some more viewer complaints over the weekend around Gardner and Simcoe on over construction noise. It's still very, very loud, going to 2:30, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, over the weekend, there was a period of time that was intended to be 24/7 work, and that's trying to achieve that balance between getting this done on a timely basis. We get lots of complaints about that, and making sure we take account of the needs of residents. The good news was, as I understand it, that there was no work done on Sunday. A lot of the work had to be done on a Saturday because of safety concerns, because it was over top of Simcoe Street. And when they finished that work, then they didn't have to work on Sunday, and my understanding is they did not, and so it was quieter on Sunday. The general rules as they relate to this project are that they will work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with very limited periods of 24-hour work when necessary, but that's all trying to achieve that balance. I respect the fact that people live down there. We acknowledged it from the beginning. We've set up the work hours as not being 24 hours a day, which we're doing on many other projects, so that we can take account of the legitimate concerns of the people who live there. And so we're going to keep working to make sure we achieve that balance and respect the rights of the people who live there, but at the same time respect the need to get this work done as quickly as possible so that overall the whole thing will come to an end. There'll be nobody who will be complaining. Drivers, residents, people who want the new park that's going to be achieved out of this. This is going to be a very good news story when it's finished. But like most construction projects, whatever it is, the period that we're going through, you know, I mean, just so, because they say I don't mention these things, the province right now is funding 100% of the cost of the Eglinton Crosstown. It's going to be a wonderful transit project that will add positively to the economic and social and the social justice needs of this city in terms of people getting to opportunity. But it's caused a lot of dislocation while it's been going on, including noise and including traffic disruption. But we've got to keep building it so that we get it finished. And once it's finished, everybody will be happy. Once this ramp is finished and the park and everything else, everybody will be much happier than they were before, and the city will be a better place. But we just have to carry on, but do it with a degree of sensitivity, which we're trying to do. Last question.
Do you have an update on the island flooding? And we're not the only city that's been flooded. Many others. Have you had a chance to reach out to the others to see how they're doing as well?
Well, I should say first and foremost, I reached out to all of Mayor Coderre in Montreal, Mayor Watson in Ottawa, and the Reeve of Minden Hills Township, where there's been a state of emergency declared in Ontario over the weekend, and said if there was anything that Toronto could do, because our problems, such as they were, and I don't mean to diminish the inconvenience for people on the island, but our problems pale by comparison to what all of those communities are going through. And I offered Toronto's help and just said if there was anything we could do, that we have the resources and the equipment and the expertise to be helpful, and they've all taken note, and we're very grateful for that offer of help, and it stands. With respect to the island, the situation there really hasn't changed very much. It has less to do, as I said over the weekend, with rainfall and more to do with things like wind and water levels, and unfortunately the water levels continue to rise as a result of the spring runoff and the watershed putting water into this part of the world, and we're just going to have to keep watching it and keep doing whatever we do. And I will repeat what I said over the weekend, and that is to express a sincere vote of thanks to our city staff, to volunteers, and to the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, among many others, who did a great job to make sure that our people were protected and our assets, meaning our parkland and our beaches and so forth. It's frustrating work for them because Mother Nature is a very formidable competitor or adversary, but having said that, they did a great job, and that's why I think we're able to offer help to others, because we're in a relatively good position ourselves.
Question for Ms. Horwath, if you wouldn't mind. What do you make of what Patrick Brown had to offer the mayor last week versus what you're offering today?
Well, from what I could see, the leader of the Conservative Party hasn't come up with anything concrete at this point. We look forward to a point in time when when Mr. Brown starts to let the people of Ontario know what his plans are and what his vision is for this province. I think people need to know, because we're heading into an election next year, where the leaders stand, what their plans are, what their vision is for this province. That's why we've been pretty clear, not only in terms of some of the municipal issues that we've made some commitments around, but also, as you will know, our pharmacare plan, $15 minimum wage, cracking down on temp agencies, trying to increase the quality of work that's available to people in the province. We've made a number of commitments because we have a vision for this province. We think it can be much, much better than it is right now, and that takes vision, and that takes a change of direction. It takes some big ideas, which we believe we have. I'm looking forward to the time when Mr. Brown, takes the initiative to let the people of Ontario know where he stands. Thank you.
Just to clarify, you're committing the amount that the city's asking for TCH repair?
We've committed a one-third, one-third, one-third partnership. So
860 something.
absolutely, absolutely. And as I was speaking to the mayor during this tour, we talked about once that backlog has been repaired and it's a go-forward basis, which we hope will happen sooner rather than later, depending on changing government perhaps, or we'll see what the future brings. But what would then be the ongoing responsibility going forward once all of the backlog has been dealt with? And the mayor said he believes that the City of Toronto has the capacity, once the backlog is completed, to on a go-forward basis maintain those units. We're not there yet. We're far, far from there. But we are committed as a party, if we form government next year, to be that one-third partner.
Thanks very